When you walk into your home stressed, exhausted, carrying everything from your day, does your child already know?
Overwhelm was probably the biggest word, but my health numbers told the story. My A1C, I got to a pre-diabetic level. My weight, I'm not that tall. So 5, 10 pounds, let alone 15, you're going to feel it. I had gotten to 168, which I have never been that much in my life. So my health was where it was playing out because I was doing a lot of stress eating. I was sitting down a lot. I wasn't sleeping well, eating in the car versus sitting and eating breakfast. My whole lifestyle was just around, as you said, doing more. And it was a doctor gave me a wake up call.
And here is what she told me next that I never heard anyone say out loud before. Welcome back to Raising Scholars. I'm Jackie Langworthy, educator, learning center owner, and a mom who has raised two confident, independent scholars. Raising Scholars family, today's guest is someone I have been waiting to bring onto the show from the day that I met her. We connected instantly. She's a licensed psychologist with 20 years of experience. She is a professor. She is a Howard woman, HU, you know. She's going to bring the truth and excellence. She is a speaker, an author, and most importantly for today's conversation, she's a mom, and she has a lot to share with us. Today, we're going to be talking about something that every parent needs to hear before the school year really gets into gear. We're going to be talking about our stress, our own personal stress, and what it's actually doing to our children, even when we're thinking we're holding everything together. Dr. Nicole Montero, welcome to Raising Scholars.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to have this conversation with
I'm super excited as well. So before we get into anything clinical, I want to know who you are as a mom because you have two girls and a psychology degree. Has that degree ever made parenting harder for you?
That is so interesting. I was just sitting here thinking how one of the most influential books for me as a mom, I don't even remember the title, was a book I checked out of the library. It was all about working on yourself, managing your stress, managing your expectations. That was so influential because, yes, as a psychologist, I have an understanding of things like stages of development and philosophies of parenting. But when you're upset and anxious and triggered as a parent, all of that can go out the window if you don't have tools for yourself. Like you need to take time for yourself. You need to do your deep breathing. You need to make sure you rest. You need to get a grip on any perfectionism and all that stuff.
So, a parent out there who doesn't have a psychology degree can basically use those same tips to parent. Now, I do wonder though, with having a degree, do you ever catch yourself clinically diagnosing your own children?
Yes and no. Sometimes I'm scared that I would maybe underdiagnose, that I would downplay because I've literally seen thousands of people throughout my career, all kind of diagnoses, symptoms or whatever. So I'm like, wait a minute, let me not diminish if my kids are saying they're struggling with something because it's okay. It's normal. It's a part of development. So I'm like probably one of those on the other end of the spectrum where I'm like, okay, wait, let me take off this hat.
So, having that degree is just a tool that you have. Like with all of us, I guess we all
Yeah.
have the thing that we're good at, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just taking that lens and saying, this is what I do know, and my degree can validate this, but going with your mom instincts instead.
Yeah, definitely. Mom instincts trump education because otherwise we're saying that all of these millennia of human existence, people had to have degrees. No, they knew what they were doing as communities, having wisdom from our grandmothers and things like that, parenting gold standards. I don't think they require a degree.
Is there a time when you ask other people because you might be thinking too clinically?
Absolutely. Some of the people I ask are my colleagues, but I'm not asking them as psychologists or professors. One of my colleagues, her kids are a little bit older, but they're very bright and gifted. And I recognize that in my kids. I would ask her certain things like about how sometimes your kids can be intellectually gifted, but emotionally immature. And she's like, "Oh, yep, definitely." We would talk more from experience, not from like the books. My daughter, she's at this program at University of Pennsylvania. I was like, "It's okay. You're nervous. I get it." I have to remind myself to be there with them. in the moment, not so much like it's all going to work out.
I can relate with that because I am that same parent, where I'm very much like, "I know it's gonna be fine. You have to trust me." I know there's other parents out there that are probably listening, like, you can see it on their face. It doesn't matter how much that you say, "Yeah, it's gonna be good," that they're still gonna freak out. I taught Sunday school today, and I give you a prime example. I had a little one, dad brought her in. She's clenching onto dad, and she doesn't wanna let go. Dad takes her to try to calm her down, and the interesting thing is that mom comes back with her. And mom is like, "Go sit down. You're gonna be fine,
Uh-huh.
and, we'll see you later." And actually, once she settled in, she was fine. She probably asked more questions than any of the others, but
Mhm.
explain that this child with one parent is one way, and with
Yes.
another parent is completely different, but the same child.
Yes.
What is that?
Yes, my kids are like that. My husband just says it one time and it's done. I think, but sometimes a kid needs a definitive yes or no. That's it. Sit in that chair and I will see you in 2 hours. Or it could be the other parent. Or we're too like, well, okay, we'll see. You let me know. And like we're giving that with our tone of voice and our gestures. Whereas there's another parent who's firm in their boundaries, they believe in them, they're not swayed, and it's not in a rude way. My husband is not swayed by what they have going on. This is what you're going to do. And the tone of voice is low, it's not yelling, but it's very clear. And I think the kids can pick up on that. Whereas with the other parent, it's usually one parent that's, and both are necessary, but they understand who they can negotiate with and who they can't. So for the parent who's more open to negotiation, I had to do this for myself. Get firm within yourself what the boundaries are and why. And don't be overly emotional about their reactions.
This is where it's hard for myself because early in their life, I became a single parent when we got divorced. And I felt like I had a balance being mom and being dad, being firm and being soft. You can't say dads are the firm ones, moms are the
Yeah.
soft ones. Like, it really depends on the personality and the parent
Personality.
and
Uh-huh.
the role that they play. And so it was really challenging for me, and I'm sure there's other parents like this who are like, "I have to be both sometimes." I will say this in my experience with my children, that's why I started this podcast was because my kids are 18 and 19 now,
Mm,
and there's some things that I'm still learning, but there's also a lot of things that I wish I would have known when they were
yeah.
younger and
Yeah.
starting now. Literally today, we're still having the issue with the dishes. I felt like I was more of the nurturing, willing to negotiate. I want to hear your side of things. Let's come to a compromise. And I'm compromising with 8 and 9 year olds, and now they're 18 and 19, and they're still not doing the dishes. So today, I was firm. I said, the dishes need to be done. And my daughter, took it one way. But guess what? Those dishes had to be done. I think because for so many years they knew they could bend the boundary with me
Yeah.
and that I was just going to cave in, they continue to do that.
Abs-
What would you tell that parent out there that's kind of like, yeah, I'm probably the soft one, or I don't hold these boundaries? How do you create these boundaries with our children so that they can do the things that we ask them to do without having to nag them constantly so that they understand, like, this just needs to be done?
Yeah, it's stop trying to be liked. That's not your role as a parent. And we bend our boundaries when we don't like the backlash. That's what I find generally. I have a platform called Boundaries to Bliss because I suffered from that myself, not just with parenting, but you have to just be okay with the backlash, the guilt, whatever the tantrums that are thrown. And I noticed that the parents that don't have a problem, like my husband could not care less. If you are told to do these dishes, whatever your attitude is or how you feel about it, it's inconsequential. And it's really like putting up that filter to not be so tuned into their reaction.
I usually separate them because a lot of times parents will bring in their own stress into the room. So I'll have the parents sit out and I'll look and I'll still see the parent peering in, trying to see what's going on. So, can children feel their parents' stress and do they take that on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I work with supervising interns, like people becoming therapists. And if they're out on their site working with kids, one of the hardest things is when they're dealing not with the child's anxiety, but with the parent's anxiety. So, absolutely, anxiety, there's a part that's kind of inherited. We don't know how much of that is kind of like genetic or biological, or also just a learned system or way of seeing the world that they take on from their parents. But there's certainly, yes, that scenario where the children are either more predisposed to anxiety because it runs in the family, or they're absorbing the parents' anxiety. We have something that we call like a phenomenon called the identified patient. So sometimes kids will be brought in like they have depression or anxiety or whatever, but it's more of something in the whole family system. But it's just that the child is the one that's being shown as like, this is the problem. So sometimes with even, I can imagine like, with just academics, I'm sure like they can get help with like the systems or how much pressure they're putting on, or are they allowing the child to fail and problem solve on their own? The child is absorbing all of that, the pressures, the expectations. Anxiety, when it's really intense, is like a way of seeing the world, which is kind of like always looking for what's going to go wrong and anticipating that. It could be a combination of everything, but I definitely could picture the scenario where it's like, we did this at home. Make sure you show Miss Jackie. And it's also what happens is like the parents are taking it as a reflection of them as parents. And I think that's where the unspoken pressure is.
Wow. So a child can actually absorb a parent's anxiety without a parent even saying a word. I want to ask you something that might be uncomfortable. When you walk into your home stressed, exhausted, carrying everything from your day, does your child already know? And here is what she told me next that I never heard anyone say out loud before.
Absolutely. Anxiety is not really what's spoken, it's what's felt. If you can observe it, you're seeing facial expressions, you're seeing body language, you're seeing rate of speech, you're seeing all of these things. And absolutely. And if the child is already a little vulnerable to anxiety, they're masters at picking up everything in their environment because they're scanning the environment for, is it safe? So sometimes the parent feels unsafe, not in a way like they're going to, abuse them, but just like, oh my God, I need to get this right so mom or dad can calm down.
How young does this start? Can a kindergartner already feel their parents' stress?
Yes. Absolutely. From what's spoken to reactions, you're under this pressure as a child because really the biggest anxiety comes when the parent feels like what the child does is a direct reflection of them as a parent. And I think that's the most potentially harmful.
You're hitting home because I'm gonna raise my hand. I am not a perfect parent. I can definitely recall stories of when I have felt away. And I would say, really, the trigger for me is embarrassment,
Yeah.
where I may be embarrassed by either their action or something that's happened. And so I guess that makes sense now for some of those parents that are coming in to have their children assessed. They may feel like, oh, if my child is not up to par, it's a reflection on me as a parent.
Yeah.
What would you say to that parent?
No, it's not. We need to divest from this embarrassment of our kids because I think it causes a lot of problems. But if you were to feel a little bit like, oh my gosh, my child did that, it should be with behavioral things that they did that are destructive or hurtful. But as far as their performance on, academically, that is dangerous. A lot of smart kids are anxious. And what you're doing is you're setting up a dangerous connection in their mind between their performance and their self worth. And we know as high achievers, a lot of us, even with the best parents, I will speak for myself. This book I read called The Drama of the Gifted Child, it just talks about like when your child is pretty gifted or academically adept or whatever, you start to equate your self worth with your performance. Now, add into that if a parent is super anxious, feeling like the child's performance is a reflection of them, it just reinforces that. So, what your child does academically or who they are should not be taken as something for you to be embarrassed about because you don't want that association in your child's mind because then they're trying to please you.
Yeah, I see the spectrum here. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen the parents who come in and the expectations are extremely high. We expect our kids to do their best,
Yeah,
and their
yes.
best may be different than the neighbor's best,
Yeah.
or their siblings' best, right? I can feel the pressure, and I sometimes have to kind of come in and say, we're here. This is a safe space for them to fail, because
Mhm.
in failure there is a lot of opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
This is not. There's no grades here. There's sometimes there are a lot of tears here because they're being stretched and pushed, but in a safe environment. And so, like I said, I'll see the parents that push and the pressure is on the kids. I feel the pressure. You hit it when you said stress is not seen, but it's felt. So I can feel the pressure that the kid is feeling, based upon what parents are saying. And then I see the parents that are very much more supportive in the sense, but almost too laxed as well.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing too, where there needs to be a little bit more pressure. How do you find that balance that's healthy for that child out there?
Yes, I totally agree that they have to be pushed as well. I think it's just getting clear within yourself that you're not valuing them based on their performance. So it's like you don't want the child to feel like, again, their self-worth is about their performance. Those are people that are more prone to burnout when they, in adulthood. Cause I'm big on expectations. I told my kids, I already know what you're capable of. So you're not coming here just lacking, being lax in backing off. But the balance is creating an environment where the child knows that they can fail, that they're going to be pushed. It's like a safe incubator where they get to experiment, they get to fail, they get to see how they can stretch themselves, but they're safe in it. And the ways that you do that, you tell them directly, like, I expect that you're not going to always be perfect. It's okay. Find joy in the journey. It's not about the grade. It's about, did you learn or did you find yourself seeing math differently, or just create a growth mindset for the kids. That's how I would put it. But you have to ask yourself, do you believe that as a parent?
This is how this conversation started. It all starts with us, right? Because what you said is our children can carry our own stress of what we're going through. And I think actually started from the very first part of the conversation when you said reading the book and how the book said
Mhm.
you need to take care of yourself first
Yeah.
before
Yep.
you can even take care of these kids. If they can feel our stress, and we're stressing, and we may not even have, as adults, the right
Yeah.
words to say what we're really going through.
Mhm.
We're just like, "Oh, I'm just busy. I'm just getting through life. Like, life is lifing right now." I remember that's like, a lot of people were saying that, and I think we normalize stress.
Yeah.
So I wanna ask you something because you hit on it about burnout, because I think we have the wrong picture of what it really is. I think most parents that are listening probably don't really understand what that really looks like.
Mm.
Can you
The
tell me
burnout.
what burnout really is?
Yes. I liken it to when I used to go to the gym, my trainer, when I'm doing my planks, he would put these weights on my shoulder. It was great. For 30 seconds, it builds endurance. But then I'm like, imagine just always having these 30, 40-pound weights on you. Every activity you have to do. And burnout is like these invisible weights that you have on you that make everything seem less joyful, less enjoyable, more arduous, more just difficult. And as parents, that weight is often unspoken expectations, unspoken hurts from our own childhood. We're trying to give stuff to our kids that we didn't have, or if we got divorced and that didn't work out, we have all of this guilt, it's expectations, it's our own unresolved stuff. And we're literally walking around with that as parents. And we feel exhausted, we feel inadequate, we feel unworthy. These are things I hear people say. And that makes me sad because as a parent, you're doing an amazing job. You're fulfilling an important role. But to put all of that extra weight and pressure goes from, all right, parenting is a lot to I'm burnt out as a parent.
I'm getting a different perspective of what burnout really is, because what I thought was burnout is the crash. You're not burnt out until you just can't do anything anymore. And I really, what I'm starting to see is burnout is like what you said, it's the weights that are being put on us that we know are being put on us, but we keep on going. And we
Yeah.
keep on doing. And we say, I'm doing this because I'm being a good mom. I'm doing this because I'm a business owner. No one else can do it like me. I'm doing this because I'm a good educator. And I keep on adding these weights on. And I just really want to know, is burnout really like a mask for doing more?
That's just you refuse to stop doing more. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I teach a master class called Banish Burnout and Build Bliss. Everyone talks about burnout is coming from the system and what we have to do, but until we change ourselves internally in our relationship to stress and doing more and seeing our value through productivity, we're going to keep being burnt out. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a cover for you just refusing to take off the cape. And you don't wanna take off the cape because that's where you get your value from.
Hmm. You're speaking to me, and I'm sure you're speaking to some other parents that are out there. Like you said, that's where I'm getting my value from. So, what is the difference between, being tired versus being burnt out?
Tired, you get a better night's sleep. These like you see, I love my aura ring. You can look at your thing and it goes with how you feel. Like, all right, so tonight I need to get in bed earlier. These next few nights, I need to, go a little bit earlier, make sure I wind down, get some more sleep, and you will feel better. But when you're burnt out, it's like it doesn't matter how much sleep you get, how much you try to get a nighttime routine, your mind is racing, your body is exhausted. The typical things that should help with fatigue or just being stressed, they don't help because it's at that point, it is like you said, you've crashed to the point where the typical prevention things don't work. And it's more about mental stress. Sometimes it can even be like you feel numb. You kind of have a sense like, I don't really care. Like you've lost your you're not as enthusiastic. It can mimic depression. Like a lot of these are signs of depression. Like you don't find joy in the things you used to. You don't really care. Like you're going through the motions. You're not tuned into what you need. So whether it's eating or whatever, taking care of yourself, you're just letting it go by the wayside. So that's the difference. But with burnout, nothing you do seems to get you back on track.
That's actually really good to know. I can admit that I've been in a stage of burnout. In my mind, I used to think burnout was you have to hit rock bottom, you have to
Yeah.
crash. But just for me, I called it something different. I just called it doing more. And I know you openly shared about you being in burnout, you
Yeah.
know. What did that look like for you? What did you call it?
I probably called it overwhelmed, or you had said some phrases, maybe something to the effect of life is life, and these cutesy terms that make it seem lighter than what it is. Overwhelmed was probably the biggest word, but my health numbers told the story. My A1C, I got to a pre-diabetic level. My weight, I'm not that tall. So 5, 10 pounds, let alone 15, you're going to feel it. I had gotten to 168, which I have never been that much in my life. So my health was where it was playing out because I was doing a lot of stress eating. I was sitting down a lot. I wasn't sleeping well, eating in the car versus sitting and eating breakfast. My whole lifestyle was just around, as you said, doing more. And it was a doctor gave me a wake up call.
How old were your girls at this time of this burnout phase for you? And did they feel what you were going through?
My youngest was 2, so she's 11 now, and then that means that the oldest must have been 5.5 or something like that. How would I have known that they knew? Probably I was getting mad about stuff that's like, this is what 3-year-olds do. Like my youngest, she hated you to comb her hair. Talk about embarrassment. So when it's time to go to preschool, we would put the little ponytails. She would literally rip everything out, and her hair was standing up like Don King.
Sometimes it can be really hard in the moment to figure out what matters and what doesn't really matter until we kind of
Yeah.
pull ourselves back out. What was that moment when you're like, this has to change? Because clinically, you should know, right? When did it click for you where you're like, I'm high functioning, but this is not right?
Yeah, that's what it is. High functioning, depression, anxiety, whatever you want to call it, burnout. I remember I was sitting on the bed with my youngest. It was late that night and I just started crying. And I did not know why I was crying. And I couldn't remember the day. Like I know we had done a lot and I was just crying. And I was like, this is not life. It felt like more than just a hard patch. It wasn't like the hardships of motherhood. It felt deeper than that. And I was like, this is crazy. And then I was thinking back to all of the people or things that I was trying to be perfect for. And even my husband said one day, you don't have to be perfect. What's the big deal? It's okay. But I'm just thinking, I'm trying to be the best professor. I'm trying not to let my clients down. If somebody wants to refer somebody to me, I'm taking on stuff that I do not do today. I was doing then. These days, I teach what I teach. You take it or you leave it. Because what I learned is that it will never be enough, whether it's students, whether it's clients, whether it's your own kids. You can give and give and give, and somebody will still have a complaint. I'm pulled in so many directions. I'm trying to please too many people. That's what it was. And then it's affected my health because I'm overcommitting. So instead of me sitting home eating my breakfast in peace, I'm telling somebody, oh no, I'll drop it off for you. I'll do it. So then I'm rushing. I'm not eating. Then I'm stopping at Dunkin'. Like it's just a ripple effect. And I was like, I cannot do this. I don't care what these people think. I don't care who's mad. I just got to the point where I just did not care. But it's because I was just sitting there crying and not knowing.
Sit in this for a second because I know somebody listening is right there right now, but I don't want to leave you in it. We're going to come back to exactly how you climb out of this later in the conversation. Hold that thought. I definitely say I've experienced that in so many different ways, and I'm sure there's a mom out there right now who's probably got a little one and one that's either going into school and can just relate. What would you tell her? How do you get out of burnout? What are the steps to recovery?
Yeah, you have to take time for yourself each and every day, even if it's 5 minutes. Like my showers would become my haven. I don't care who's knocking on the door. I would just be in the shower. You have to take time for yourself. It doesn't matter how small. You know, moms, we stay in the car before we come in the house. I would just listen to my music. But more than that, like that's a practice. But to me, it starts with a mindset of being okay disappointing people.
Mm.
Because for women, I have found, for me personally, and what I have observed, we're so hell bent on not disappointing people. And then we're overcommitting. So the first step is it's okay to disappoint people. Even with these preschools, they got all these rules. You can't be 5 minutes late. I don't care. I'm not trying to be late, but if it happens, it happens. I can't beat myself up day and night because I missed your deadline. If there's a fee, great. If you're going to send me an email to say, oh, you're late for the third time, great. Whatever it is, I'll take it. But I have to take off that mental pressure to try to be so good and perfect for everybody.
Yeah. You hit it in the head. I love the fact that you said disappointment is okay. It's almost similar to what I tell my students. It's okay to fail.
Yes,
That's where we learn. And guess what? Most people are gonna get over it, and
they're
you're
going
gonna
to
grow
remember.
from it and be better for it. And I'm also glad that you said, as I sit in my car too, I had to think about it. I said, that's my regulation period. Before I
Yes,
go into this house, I need to pull myself together before I have to go tackle the dishes, what's for dinner, and all the other things.
yes.
So thank you for validating what I'm
I'll
doing. It's
just be sitting
okay.
there like, "Oh my gosh," just watching my crazy YouTubes or whatever it is that I do.
Just need a moment. I just need a moment. And I
Yeah.
tell parents, like, our kids need that too, especially like before homework time. Like they
Mhm.
sometimes just they come back. School is not easy always for them. And they come home from school, especially they come directly home from school, and you're immediately like, go do your homework. They need a little chill period too. Maybe not on screen time, but they need a little chill period too. So
Yeah.
it's
That how my kids' school told me that. I loved it when they were like, "This is so cognitively taxing." That's what they said. They go to a bilingual immersion school. They're navigating these different languages. They're navigating social. When we know with these kids, the social thing is such a big thing. They're following rules. And the teachers were just like, it is mentally draining for them. And I thought that was so great the way that it's almost like they gave us permission to go easy on them a little.
Yes, because some parents need that, especially when we put our kids in high performing schools. So that means we're already focused on their education and we're kind of like, go, 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 go. And there are times when it's like you said, it's cognitively taxing. It's exhausting for them. they need a little break in between too. That doesn't mean that they can go and do screen time for forever when they get
Hours,
home, but
yeah.
they do need to have just that regulation like we needed. My audience, most of them have young children, elementary age, and I wanna ask you something specific because I think parents are seeing the signs and calling it something else. So what does anxiety in a young child actually look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's usually behavioral or physical, somatic.
Mm.
So they might just seem irritable or like avoiding things, like, I don't want to do that. And they might even seem angry, but underneath that, it could be anxiety, like they're anxious about it. It could be like tummy aches, headaches, difficulty sleeping. It's rarely like, hey, I'm really nervous. I'm feeling anxious about this. They're not necessarily putting two and two together, but you'll see it in things that they're either trying to avoid, seeming irritable slash angry when it's out of proportion, to what it should be, and physical complaints or things.
It's interesting that you say that. I'll notice that, like, I'll get the kids, especially during a test, some will ask to use the restroom a lot. Or they'll say that they have a stomach ache or they're not feeling well today. And there are times where, I'm usually pretty open because, like I said, this is a safe space for them
Yeah.
where I'll say, if you're not feeling well, that's fine. We could test next week. But now that you say that, it's probably their anxiety of
Yeah.
performing. And as you touched on it earlier, sometimes we parents put that pressure on our kids to perform. And the pressure might not even be really audible, or it
Mhm.
might have been, you did such a great job before that they
Yeah.
feel like if I don't continue to keep this standard, they may not love me anymore, or
Yeah.
I'm not meeting the mark. And so they put their own anxiety on themselves. And I do see that all the time here in the center, the headaches and the tummy aches, and like you said, the anger. I've
Mhm.
seen that as well, where children are really frustrated. And so I just want to know about the child that last year they seemed like they were okay, and now it's a problem. They don't want to go to school. What about that child?
Yeah, I would be curious if something changed socially. Is what I am noticing as a parent, but something maybe I knew as a psychologist, like, listening to my kids, these social networks and friend groups and all that. And for girls, it can be really intense. I mean, for both, but for girls especially. I would want to know if something changed. Is it a new school or different friend group? Did something change in the social environment that's affecting them? And then also, is it a pivotal year where the work is a little bit more challenging and it's making them question themselves a little bit more than the previous, like last year they did well, but this year they're more resistant?
Some children are very talkative and they're going to share about the day. I have two children, they're completely different. But how do I get that information where it's like I can tell their behaviors are changing
Yeah.
and I just don't know what's going on because we send our kids off to school for what 6, 7 hours out of the
Yeah.
day and we have no clue really what's actually going on.
Yeah.
How do they extrapolate that out of their kid or try to figure these things out?
Yeah, I'd say try to establish as good a relationship with the teachers. Like my kids, they first went to a small school. Now the big one is in high school, but I'm on that email from day one. I'm just like, you're going to know who I am because I need to understand what's happening with my child. But on the child end, I would just less asking like, well, what happened today? I think the good thing, my kids ride in the back. So it's not face to face. So I'll share something that I went through, like, you want to hear some tea that's going on at my job? Like, okay, tell you what's happening at the university because we have tea. And then
Yes.
that'll kind of make it like you can't be too pressed with kids, especially when they're going to preteen and teen. You can't be like, well, I need to know. Like, you kind of have to be like, okay, not too invested. And then that's when they'll open up. So I would share something that you went through. I would say, and I saw this post, it was really good. It was like questions you can ask your kid that's not directly like what happened today. So it's like, did something make you smile today? Or what did different people have for lunch today? Or, just little questions that seem minor, but they're not going straight for, well, what happened today? And did you get bullied? Because if you're an anxious parent, you're probably bringing that same energy to how you're questioning. So you want to be a little more laid back. Just ask general questions, just share things about your day. And over time, be patient. It's something that I teach this with couples, like when I'm coaching couples. you gotta just let it flow, and I think it's the same with kids. Just you're not gonna get all the answers at once, but you have to build that relationship where they feel safe coming to you. And now you it doesn't mean you can never be direct. So sometimes you could be like, "No, I noticed that, like, you used to love going to see Miss Jackie, like, when we would go to Kumon, but now it's like you're going a little bit slower or you're not as excited. Like, what is there something going on?"
Yeah, I think that's really important, having both sides to it where you're sharing and they're opening up. I know my daughter, now that she's older, it was a lot easier when she was younger, right?
Yeah.
Elementary school was, she would share with me what was going on, and I think there was a period, though, where she kinda shifted and was like, "Is mom the safe space to be able to share some of these things with?" I had to pull back, and I felt like I was missing a lot because she used to share, and then she kinda got quiet, but I realized when she's ready to, she will share certain things, and you hit it when you said, when I'm real nonchalant about it, like, "Mm, I don't really care." Like,
Yeah.
"Really?" Or, you know?
You know how teenagers are. If you're too into it, they're like, I'm not gonna say."
I can't say anything at all. That's yeah, that's so true. It's interesting though too because like I said, different kids and they're all different. It's like what I want to know is about, when you have that quiet child, one that never complains or is
Yeah.
always agreeable. And I probably was that child. I'm not quiet, but I I
Yeah.
didn't really complain and I was always like agreeable, just going with the flow. But can they be carrying anxiety too? And how do you identify if they actually have it?
Yeah, they can be. I always say it's like when we say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Like even with evaluations I used to do in school, it's the kids that are acting out behaviorally. They tend to get identified like, okay, they have this issue, they need these interventions. But it's those that are quiet that the teachers, everybody loves them because they're not causing problems. So I think if you notice that about your child, it's important to have a little more one-to-one time with them, creating that safe rapport, maybe showing some of your vulnerabilities. First of all, I apologize to them a lot. Like, all right, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have raised my voice or I reacted out of proportion. But I'll also tell them, I forgot that my brain, I'm stressed out. Oh my God. Like, I'll just kind of talk through what I'm going through. 'Cause our kids think that we're superwoman, they think we're perfect, and my daughter just asked me, "You ever have this thing where you take a break from something, but then you're not motivated to start back up again? Did you ever experience that?" I said, "Yes, oh my god, all the time. Not only did I experience it, I experience it now." So they're looking for clues that we're not perfect, and so with the quiet ones, I think it's maybe sharing a little bit more of whatever you went not like trauma dumping, but just like
Sure.
sharing your little things, and then also maybe more doing. So, like, going out for ice cream, like, doing things together. So, doing more and questioning less.
Yeah, because you're right. Because with my daughter, I noticed with her, if we do things like puzzles
Mhm.
or she's very creative, so, like, if we would color when she was little, that would be when she would open up and talk more. Because it was almost like she had to be doing for the talking to just flow.
Yes.
And now as she's gotten older, we don't do as much, but there was a situation where we got out a puzzle, and I think that helped to kind of bring her down, and as we got into the puzzle, I think that helped to regulate her. Then she was able to open up and talk a little bit more about how she was feeling and what her fears
Yeah.
were, and I remember consciously just telling myself, "Just take it in. Don't ask any questions," because if I said the wrong thing, then she would immediately shut down. So
Yeah.
I was just like, "Just take it all in and just receive what she's saying and be intentional about hearing her and recording what she's saying in my mind so that later on, if she had questions, she knew I was actually listening to her."
So beautiful. It's not easy, but that's it right there. That's the solution.
Yeah, and we're still working on it, because like I said, there's so many different kids and,
Yeah.
there's no manual, there's no solution guide. We just are figuring it out, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's helpful to have these conversations, especially for the parent that's out there that's like, "Yeah, my kid is that way, and maybe these tips can help, or this is how I can better connect with them." So I
Yeah.
think that's the piece. Let's go to those parents and see what they actually can do. Not in 6 months, not after finding a therapist, because I think that's actually good advice for a lot of people. I mean, and like you talk about being vulnerable and telling our kids that we're not perfect. I'm quick to tell them, I think I might even said at the beginning of this episode, there's no perfect parent. And I tell my kids all
Yes.
the time, I'm not perfect. And I think that's very helpful because if our kids think we are perfect, and like I said, especially if you're a high
Yes.
functioning person, And if they see you always with the cape on, she's coming through, she's smiling, everything is great, then they feel like they don't have room to fail and they don't have that safe space. So by telling them, by no means am I perfect, I missed this meeting, I did this, I
Yeah.
think that helps them. But for that parent, what is one thing that they can actually do to lower their anxiety temperature in their home right now, even if it's themselves or with their children?
That's a good question. What do we do? Because I want to speak more personally than just clinically. Sometimes it's returning to what can ground you. So it could be like eat dinner together and have a non academic conversation. Don't talk about the grades or whatever the issue is, but just something fun. Maybe do a family game together. We love Monopoly. Just spend time together and try to be in the present, because anxiety is literally taking you into the future. Like we say, depression is you're stuck in the past, regret, why didn't this happen, that happened. Anxiety is anticipating the future because you're trying to avoid bad things happening, but you're not in the present. So you take that temperature down by doing something that you spend time together. Eating is one of the best things. That's why they say there's a lot of research that one of the main factors that contributes to kids' growth and development is family dinner time. I think that's an indication of certain things like level of stability, but that family time together, it keeps you in the present. It reminds you of what's important. A lot of times we're blowing things out of proportion. Now, sometimes we're not. Sometimes there's issues. Sometimes we're not paying enough attention. But for the overly anxious parent, we tend to be making a mountain out of a molehill. So you want to get back in the present, eat together, play a game together, watch a show together. And then it's something we would all just get into and have fun. And then try to create routines like ours is every Thursday is when we do takeout. I know a lot of people do it Fridays, but we do it Thursdays. So everybody's like on Wednesday and everybody has their own thing. This person wants Chick-fil-A. And then we're like, all right, who's getting what? So that's something that we look forward to.
Yeah.
And it creates conversation.
No, I like that. I'm definitely gonna have a conversation. We're gonna have to plan some time, and I think it's a lot harder for me, and that's why I said it's really good to establish these routines when they're younger, because it becomes part of your family tradition.
Yeah.
And it's almost just like, this is what we do, and especially I'm experiencing this now as my kids are getting older and leaving, and I will even say, whether if you're together or even if you're a single mom and they're in 2
Yeah.
different places, you can still have your own family traditions in your household, but I love that. I mean, we did watch Blackish, that was our show.
Yeah,
We had a show that we would watch, and we only could watch it together, but I like that about creating that routine for your family because as mine are leaving, there are still some routines that we have that I wish I really would have made it concrete, like, this is our thing, because
yeah.
even when they're not in the home, they're gonna remember and they'll still even do it. I talked about this in one of the episodes called An Anchor and Float, and I had to
Mm,
share it with my son. I said, "In the summertime, it's really easy for our routines to get thrown off, right?"
yeah,
And so you still have to have whatever that anchor is that you're going to do, what you're gonna commit to doing, and then the rest of the day you can float and do whatever. I think we have to do the same with our routines, with just like those family routines, like, this is the anchor that we do as a family together.
yeah,
And regardless of where we are in life, if they're young, if they're old, if they're at the grandparents' house, wherever it is, they'll still call in on it, and it may be, "Hey, we didn't order today, but if we were
yeah,
what would you get?" And it just brings the family back together. I do have one last question for the mom that's listening out there who would never describe herself as anxious or burnt out, who is just doing her best, but is actually running on empty and wondering why her child seems more unsettled lately. What do you want her to know?
yeah. First of all, you're doing a great job, mom. You gotta go give yourself grace and self compassion. So many of us are measuring ourselves against a standard that we don't even know it is. It's like we're just trying to do more and more and more. But I would say your child feeling settled often is a reflection of how settled you feel. And this isn't to blame you. This is to give you empowerment. There's something called mirroring and co-regulation, meaning that our kids and those that we're taking care of, they mirror what we are experiencing and what we're expressing. And the more regulated we are, the more regulated they become. So do three things today. Make sure you eat, because a lot of moms don't eat, or it's like 3 or 4 o'clock and oh, I haven't eaten. Take a moment to just take a few deep breaths and you do one small thing for yourself, whether it's a show, a hot shower, or something. Do these 3 things over and over. You'll become more settled, and your child will feel if the one protecting the child is unsettled, that means there's danger. So then the child is also on alert because they're feeling like, okay, I have to just natural survival. So when you're settling yourself, that gives the signal that the child can settle him or herself. None of this is spoken, by the way. It's communication through actions, through those signals that we give off from our nervous system, from just how we're reacting. So I would say it's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Have compassion for yourself, but take care of yourself. The more you take care of yourself, the more that's going to trickle down to your child.
It's the same patterns and themes. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
to pour into ourselves first. Nicole, I'm just grateful that you could come and share. I'm grateful that we got an opportunity to connect and just really talk because before we got on this call, I was sharing with you. I had a moment with my 19-year-old son where he could feel my stress in the car. It was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
But he immediately felt what I was feeling, and I'm driving, not saying a word, just hands
Yeah.
clutched. I guess he saw how tight I was holding the steering wheel as he was telling me these things, and he saw it and of course, at 19 versus 9, he was
Yeah.
able to speak it and say, "Mommy, if this is hard for you, just think about how hard it is for me. It's 10 times harder for me." And immediately I said, "You're right, and I gotta get myself together." I said, "So just give me a moment so I can get myself together, and when the time is right, we'll have this conversation." Because I was processing everything that he was telling me, and he could just feel it. But like I said, I'm just so grateful because burnout's a bliss, right?
Yes. Boundaries to bliss.
Boundaries
Because
to bliss,
boundaries help you get rid of the burnout.
the burnout.
Yes.
And, but I just want because I'm sure there are moms out there that are hearing this, that they're in that burnout phase. How can they connect with you and, your program?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, drnicolemontero.com, and then you'll see my masterclass, you'll see the book, you'll also see the podcast. I also have a private practice, but I only see therapy clients in Pennsylvania. But, the program is more not even if you just need therapy, but like just the tools for having healthier boundaries, getting rid of burnout, and all of those things. And I love that you said that about engaging with your son. I think also when they get older, we also have the right to say, yeah, you have a right for it to be hard for you too. So it's not like we're trying to act like nothing bothers us, but it creates a space for a two-way conversation. Like, yeah, son, I know it's hard for you. It's hard for me. We'll figure it out.
Well, Dr. Nicole Montero, I appreciate you. I'm just so grateful that you were able to come on and share with our families, and, I look forward with us connecting again.
Thank you so much. You have a great platform, and it's been a pleasure being here.
Jackie Langworthy. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Dr. Nicole, for this conversation. If anything we talked about today resonated with you, head to the RaisingScholarsPodcast.com and download the free Raise Scholar Framework Guide. It's a full guide with practical actions you can take in your home this week, and it's completely free. And if this episode hit home, share it. Text it to a parent who needs to hear it tonight. I'll see you next week.